Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Nathan, and as the title suggests, I decided to go back into flipping cars just this one more time to see if I can actually make a profit. And that of course is by buying this 2014 Volkswagen Jetta. Now this one here is the Highline package, so you get everything. You get the comfort access system here, or KESI as it's known as. Also this lovely leather interior, and my goodness, it is flawless. I mean, look at that steering wheel. There's no blemishes or anything on it. It looks immaculate. And even here on the door cards, like look at that. There's no scratches here on this plastic right here. It looks just absolutely perfect. Everything here in the back seats is just amazing too. And same here on the rear doors. There's no dog scratches or nothing. Just walking around the exterior here, it looks just almost like it's brand new off the dealership floor. Now obviously this vehicle is a bit dated because the new Jettas don't look almost anything like this one. But yet the exterior styling is just still in tip-top shape. Like, I mean, this is a one-owner vehicle, which is just surprising because you can't usually find one-owner vehicles, especially for a vehicle this old. I mean, it just, wow, it looks so good. So this being a 2014 Jetta, you're probably thinking that it has probably well over 200,000 kilometers, but actually, in fact, it doesn't. It only has 166,000 kilometers. And not only that, as I said, it's a one-owner vehicle, so only one person's had this vehicle's entire life. I have all the records dating back to the very first payment of this vehicle, which is just astonishing. But this vehicle here, now you're probably wondering, how much did I pay for something like that? Probably 8-9 grand? No, I didn't. I paid $2,700 for this vehicle. This vehicle was the cheapest, probably the most reliable car on marketplace at the time, to be honest, despite the fact that it does need a timing chain job. That's a blessing in disguise, really. Let's hope it stays that way. So if I can fix this vehicle up here for a decent amount of money, I could probably make about hopefully a $3,000 to $4,000 profit. Now, before I rip this car apart, at least the engine, to do the timing chain and a little bit of other service work, I'm actually gonna go do a driving impression just to give you guys an idea of how well it drives in its current state. So this is the push button start, which is kind of nice. So you just put your foot down on the brake, hold the start button, start it up. Let's go for a little drive. Now, having driven this vehicle over 100 kilometers to get it home so I can work on it, you would never be able to tell that there was a misfire or anything wrong with the timing chain, and which is, again, a blessing in disguise, really. I know it needs to be done, but it feels perfectly fine. The engine's responsive, the automatic transmission is a DSG, so it's a little jerky just naturally, but nonetheless, it drives like almost a brand new car. I feel that's enough of the backstory about this vehicle. Let's get into the process now of me ripping apart the engine and doing the timing chain and also some other maintenance items. All right, it's time to get to work on this Jetta here and get that timing chain fixed, and also fix the oil leak here on top of the valve cover, or some people call it the cam cover. So I've already done a lot of this work ahead of time because I didn't want you guys to have to watch it. Of course, that's removing the coil packs right there at the top, and then also just unplugging a bunch of stuff. And even down here, I removed the fender liner in here, and then also the accessory belt and tensioner, which I will say is a lot easier on the 1.8 liter compared to the 2 liter on my GTI. So now it's really just gonna be moving a bunch of this stuff over here so I can get access to the upper timing chain cover, and then also just moving all this electrical stuff here, because again, I do need to take off this top cover here so that way I can reseal it. This is a really good tool, by the way, these hose clamp pliers. Definitely recommend getting some. Makes your work twice as fast. Now, I always tape up things whenever I'm working on a car, because the last thing I want to do is get contaminants in a place where they don't need to be. Another good thing is too, when you're putting it back together, if you've maybe forgot something to connect a evap hose in, you'll definitely see it because of the tape. So I'm just going to lay the high pressure fuel pump just over to the side because that's all I really need to do. And then now I can remove the rest of this stuff here. So I removed a bit more stuff, so now we pretty much have access to the top cover. What I do now is take off the PCV housing, and then obviously get the engine in time, and then start to remove the cuppers here. So I'm sure like a lot of you have watched my GTI timing video. There is 2 markings here. There is one on the crank, which is just right here where my index finger is. And then there's just one over here to the side. So I have to get those two aligned, and then the engine will be in time. Okay, it's time to take off the engine mount here. And of course, I have the jack underneath the vehicle supporting the engine. So after I remove this engine mount, it's pretty much easy peasy from there. I have access to the timing chain. Again, this is a lot easier than working on my 2010 Mark VI GTI. Not bad. Now it's just this bracket right here that I have to remove, and that's it. So everything's now removed here. It's easy access. I've got lots of space between the body of the car and the engine to do the timing chain. And also I removed this from down in there because when I'm going to take off this lower cover and put on the new one, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to work around it. Before I use my special tool to tension the tensioner, I actually have to remove this whole thing right here, which is the bridge. And in order to do that, I actually have to first remove this, which does require a special tool, like this right here in my hand. And then once I've done that, I can remove all these T30s. Okay, with the bridge removed here, oftentimes, at least on the 2 liters, you would see a little mesh screen that had separated, but on the 1.8s, I don't think they even had a mesh screen there, so that's good news. Well, slight change of plan here. I actually have to remove the lower timing chain cover because there is a piece of metal here from the lower cover that actually comes further out, and you can't get the tensioner tool around it, so I'm gonna have to remove that. So that's fun. For those of you who watched my GTI timing chain video, you'll recognize this tool here. This is the crank holder tool. This is what you need to use when you're removing the bolt. And as you can see, it's the newer style tensioner, which is great. That means it will actually work for doing what I need to do, and that is just compressing it. Now I can finally install this tool. So all I'm gonna do now is actually push this lever, compressing the tensioner down below, but there's actually a little thing I'm gonna have to squeeze on the tensioner to allow it to compress, and then while doing that, put in an actual pin. So how many teeth do we have actually showing on this tensioner before I compress it? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 teeth, which yeah, definitely means this needs to be replaced. So I'm gonna compress it now. Okay, there we go. The pin is in. In case you guys are wondering how I know how to do all this stuff and what order to do it in, it's because I have a repair manual, that's why. So I also have to lock the cams, and I'm going to use these special locking tools right here. So here's what it looks like with the cover off. And as you can see, it's just a little bit of sealant right here. It's not a traditional valve cover gasket where it's just a separate gasket that you would replace. It's actually sealant. And one thing, yes, I know that actually happened and I thought I was going to avoid was the cam here, especially this one. It's jumped up quite a bit. But what I did as a cautionary is before I took off the cover, I actually marked the groove on the cam, the intake here, and where this locking pin is. So that way I know where it lines up. Now it's just time to clean all of this up and then clean the top cover here. So again, clean up all these grooves along the whole top and then applying some new sealant in there. Because my camera died earlier, I pretty much just finished up with putting the top cover here back on. I torqued it down and then put the PCV housing back on. And then timing chains here, well, took the actual chain off itself. And same with the balance shaft chain as well. I mean, I didn't have to do the balance shaft service, but I'm gonna do it anyways because I like this engine to last a long time for the next owner. So really the next time you're gonna see this is when it's all buttoned up. Basically, I'll have the chains on and then I'll be ready to put the new lower timing chain cover on. And that's pretty much it. Okay, new timing chain guides. And tensioner is now installed. And now it's just time to pull the grenade pin. It's not that exciting, unfortunately. So as you can see, there's the new balance shaft chain and guides, and also the new tensioner over to the left-hand side there. Join me the following morning, and I have everything pretty much back together here. There's just a couple of things I have to do, and then this car is ready to go on the road. Now, the last couple items I have to do is replace these spark plugs and also do an oil change. Yeah, again, those are pretty gross. Compare the new one here with the old one. Yeah, 60,000 kilometers. Should have been done a bit sooner than that. Now, although I bought pre-gap spark plugs, you should always double check them with a gap tool like this and make sure that it's right. And this one is 0.032 of an inch, so that's right. Also, I always put a little bit of dielectric grease on the spark plug threads here, just a little bit. You don't need a lot, just a tiny wee bit here. And there you go. Just put it like that in the socket, and then down the hatch it goes. And again, always do it by hand, at least getting it started. So now we're going to torque the spark plugs down to 30 Newton meters. Okay, time for the boots here to go back in. Okay, the coil packs have been reinstalled, so now I just have to reinstall the air intake and then change out the oil filter and add some oil, and we're good to go. Now, I don't usually recommend using a crescent wrench on these, but I don't have a 32 mil, unfortunately. All right, everyone, it's now time to fire this thing up, and hopefully I didn't mess anything up along the way. Pray for me, please. Well, everything seems to be running okay. I just checked the timing chain stretch, and we're at negative 0.03, if that makes any sense. So that's good, that's much better. And that stuff you're probably seeing burning off right now is just a little bit of excess coolant from when I took off all these lines here. So I've wrapped up everything with the Jetta. I've done all the maintenance work and even gave it a little bit of a light clean. Fortunately, it wasn't that bad. And then now it's on to the last item, and that of course is... Now the car's all fixed up, I'm ready to create my Facebook Marketplace ad, and as you can tell by the photos, I've created them all in a portrait mode rather than a landscape mode because it's a lot easier to see all the photos of a vehicle, at least the whole picture of it, when it's in a portrait mode. So I even included a small video in there just to show people that it's running in a good condition, because I find also helps sell a vehicle as well. So now let's see what I have invested in this car, and then also what I'm hoping to sell it for, and what I actually ended up selling it for. And just like that Veloster Turbo I flipped a couple years back, I have a lovely spreadsheet here that keeps track of all the costs to make sure I'm not going to lose any money, hopefully at the end of the day. So starting off with the initial vehicle cost, that was $2,700. And then here in BC, because when you go to register a vehicle, they actually do it on the actual wholesale value, not what you paid for it. So it doesn't matter that I paid $2,700 for it. They're going to charge me the wholesale value, which was $7,500 at the time. So that was rather expensive. So I decided to get it appraised. Fortunately, I did, and that only cost me $88.20 to do that. So the appraised value based on the actual vehicle itself was $2,200, making the registration cost $324. And then on top of that, of course, insurance, which is $90. So the next stuff is parts. Of course, I didn't have to replace all these parts. A lot of it was just preventative maintenance and things that happened along the way. But of course, the main issue, of course, when I bought this vehicle was the timing chain that needed to be replaced as the stretch was just too much. And of course, I bought a timing chain and balance shaft chain kit from FCP Euro. Like, I'm not sponsored by them, but I've used them in the past before, and their kits are pretty decent. So that came to $1,147.33. Now, oil filter, spark plugs, and a spark plug boot came to $83.59. Some oil, $47.67. A valve cover reseal kit, again from SCP Euro, came to $126.48. And then unfortunately I had to replace the vacuum pump gasket because after putting it all back together, I did notice there was a bit of an oil leak. Again, unexpected, but that's what happens when you flip cars. So that came to $30.99. And also the part shipping, which you have to include in all this, came to $169.65. So that includes the customs and just the shipping and handling. And that brings the total parts expenses to $1,436.06. So total expenses, $4,638.26 is what I had into this vehicle. Now, to list this vehicle, I did a bunch of research, of course, using Carfax.ca, which is what I typically use to find out what a vehicle will go for. And of course, just researching Marketplace and a bunch of other used websites to see what I can list a vehicle for. Again, dealerships are always going to have their vehicles listed for a lot more money, so I'm going to try and stay under those prices quite a bit because obviously I want to sell the vehicle. So I decided to list the vehicle based on the median price from Carfax, which was $9,831.50. I actually tried to list it a little bit lower than that at $9,500, thinking that's a pretty decent deal considering how good of shape it is and the fact that it's a one-owner vehicle. So after doing that, I listed it for $9,500, and about 4 days later, I ended up selling it for, guess what, $9,500. That never happens. I've never once sold a vehicle for my asking price. Now, subtracting what I've actually spent on the vehicle from the $9,500 sale price, I actually am left with a $4,861.74 profit, which is just phenomenal. I never thought I'd ever make that on a vehicle like this. And just to make sure it was all worth it, I had to also break down all the problems that I knew about when going to fix this vehicle and how much time I had allocated to each issue. So of course the timing chain and balance shaft service was about 8 hours. Valve cover reseal was about 1.5 hours. Spark plugs was half an hour. Oil change half an hour. And then a light interior cleaning was 1 hour. So that brings a total hours of 11.5 on this vehicle. And based on that, I have made an hourly rate of $422.76, which I think is pretty decent, probably more than most shops make an hour, I'm sure. Compared to the Velociter flip that I did years back, which I only made maybe a few $100 on, this is a night and day difference. What an amazing relief. I was so happy, and I might even do this again. So I want to say thank you very much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to hit the thumbs up button and also consider subscribing so that we don't miss any future videos like this. And also stay tuned for the next couple weeks. There will be a review on the Jetta, so make sure you don't miss that as well. And until next time, take care. Bye now.